welcome to the debate. Globally, we are pumping billions of dollars into climate tech. Electric vehicles, solar grids, heat pumps. The math says our emissions should be plummeting. But in the real world, the gears are just grinding to a halt. Heavily funded climate policies are stalling out.
Yeah, and in some cases, moving backward. It's a fascinating paradox.
Right. And that's the central question here. Why?
Well, that brings us to the core of the research we're looking at today. It's from the think tank Action and Climate Change. Academics like Palma, Ben-Akiva, Picard, and Lindsey. They make a really compelling case that our biggest blind spot in decarbonization isn't the technology at all. It's human behavior.
Which sets up our divide perfectly, I think, because I read their work and I see a profound systemic bottleneck. To me, the bottleneck isn't the technology or the people. It's sheer institutional incompetence.
Okay, institutional incompetence.
Exactly. The machine is breaking because the mechanics keep changing the rules and failing at basic execution.
And I really have to push back there, because you could have a flawlessly administered policy, and human nature is still going to throw a wrench in it. The root issue is inherent behavioral resistance.
Let's look at the reality of how these policies actually roll out, though. The gap between an elegant Excel spreadsheet and what happens on the ground is just a chasm of administrative nightmares.
Well, nobody loves paperwork.
Right, but if you're listening to this and you've ever tried to get a government rebate for a home energy renovation, you know exactly what I mean. You're handed a 30-page form requiring 15 supporting documents, and nobody even knows which department validates it.
Sure, that's frustrating.
Adoption literally dies in the paperwork. Add to that the constant policy yo-yoing. Like Australia introduced carbon taxes and abruptly scrapped them. The UK planned a combustion engine ban for 2040, bumped it to 2030, then relaxed it again.
Right, the goalposts keep moving.
Exactly. You simply cannot expect a household to make a 20-year investment when the institutional rules change every 2 years.
I don't disagree that the paperwork is awful or that stability matters, but streamlining forms won't solve the underlying problem. Take the mental burden of adoption.
You mean just the hassle of it?
Exactly. Even in a utopian scenario where a heat pump costs just 500 euros, the sheer mental load of finding a reliable installer, managing the disruption to your home, all of that is enough to make people stick with their old gas boiler.
So it's an inertia problem?
Yes. And then there's the rebound effect, which is huge. Let's say your stable government gives someone a highly efficient car that uses half the fuel. The human brain doesn't say, great, I'll have my emissions.
It calculates that driving just got cheaper.
Spot on. It calculates that driving is cheaper per kilometer, which actually incentivizes taking longer weekend trips. The efficiency actively breeds more consumption.
See, you're framing that rebound effect as a psychological flaw, but I see it as a logical, almost unavoidable reflex to a poorly designed system. When we look at how costs are distributed, climate policy is never neutral.
How do you mean?
Think about a carbon tax. It brutally penalizes a rural family that has zero public transit options and literally has to drive to work. Meanwhile, a corporate executive cycling to their office in the city center barely notices the tax.
Well, yes, the redistributive effects are definitely uneven there.
Exactly. When working class people resist these policies, it isn't some irrational behavioral failure. It's bandwidth scarcity. It's a survival reflex where the end of the month takes precedence over the end of the world.
Fairness is critical, absolutely, I'm with you on that. But even when you design what looks like a highly equitable, redistributive policy, human behavior inevitably skews the result.
Even a perfectly fair policy.
Yes, think about how a generous green subsidy actually works in practice. If the government offers a 50% rebate on a $20,000 solar array, who actually claims it?
Usually the people who can afford the upfront cost.
Exactly. Only the people who already have $10,000 lying around to front the cost, plus, the free time on a Tuesday afternoon to research tax codes. Instantly, your well-meaning climate initiative operates like a tax break for the wealthy.
Which breeds massive social resentment.
Right. So behavior isn't just a byproduct of unfairness, it acts as a rigid design constraint. You have to treat human reflexes, like the rebound effect, with the same exactitude an engineer treats the laws of physics.
That's a really sharp way to put it, actually. and it highlights the massive overhaul required. For me, institutional stability and carefully mapped, fair redistributive systems have to be the bedrock. If the administrative machine isn't competent, we have no right asking citizens to overhaul their daily lives.
And from my perspective, until we fully account for how people actually tick, until we accept that making things cheaper often just makes people use them more, even the most flawlessly administered policy is going to miss its targets.
Fair enough. But we do clearly converge on a central takeaway from the source material. Social acceptability cannot be an afterthought.
Oh, absolutely not.
We have to stop treating public reaction as a PR problem to be managed with a slick ad campaign after a policy drops. We need to co-construct these solutions with communities from day one.
Exactly. It requires intellectual humility. Policy experts sitting in closed rooms simply do not hold all the answers to how people actually live, work, and make decisions.
So as we look at the blueprint for our future, we leave it to you to consider. Are we failing because the administrative machine itself is broken, or because we fundamentally misunderstood the human gears turning inside it? Thank you for joining us on The Debate.